Chapter 35. Old Friends. Reyes paused for a moment at the doorway of the barroom. He glanced back uncertainly at the village square. The leader of the Harpies had taken to the air the moment the meeting was declared over. She had flown to the far side of the village, leaving the well available to those who still needed to draw water, although, as of yet, no one seemed willing to risk it. Agnart had also left the village square. She was walking at a slow, measured pace towards the inn, a determined look on her face. Reyes knew that most Harpies would take to the air even for such a short distance. Only someone who had gotten used to walking because she'd spent a great deal of her life being unable to fly would keep to the ground. Reyes was now certain that she really was Agnart. "I think we're about to have a guest," Reyes commented, letting the barroom door swing closed behind him as he entered. "I think we already have one," the innkeeper said, his words dripping with hate. Gaggara was standing by the bar. She was half turned so she could see what was happening in the rest of the barroom. She had one shoulder resting lightly against the bar. The dart thrower that she had obtained from somewhere was resting lightly on the top of the bar just a few inches from her hand. Sampere and the innkeeper's wife were also in the barroom. Sampere was sitting at a table in the corner as far from Gaggara as he could. The innkeeper's wife was hovering near the end of the bar, as if she was trying to build up courage to hurry past the harpy and enter the kitchen. From the smell of it, the chicken had started to burn, but it could probably mostly still be saved. "I was shocked that that harpy was able to speak flourish," the innkeeper said. "How common do you think that is? What about this one? Do you think she can understand us, or can we speak freely?" "Some harpies can speak flourish," Reyes confided. He glanced at Gaggara and saw that the medallion Manglos had given her was still hanging around her neck. "I think this one will understand us, but I also think it's safe to speak in front of her." "Bloody harpies," the innkeeper spat. "What makes this one so special?" Reyes hesitated. The innkeeper and his wife had lost a child to a raid by harpies. He knew he ought to tell them the truth, and yet he just couldn't bring himself to do so. He looked at Gaggara. She was looking pointedly at the table where the two of them had sat the previous night. Reyes followed her gaze and saw that she had left her ring on top of the table. Reyes made his way over to the table and took the same seat that he had that morning, allowing his hands to fall innocently on top of the ring, covering it from sight. Then he tucked it safely away in the hammerstone. Can I get you something to drink?" the innkeeper's wife was asking of Gaggara. She slipped carefully behind the bar where she hung back as close to the wall as she could get. "Just water," Gaggara replied. "Water?" the innkeeper's wife confirmed. Gaggara looked round sharply at the chubby woman and said, "I want to see it poured in front of me." "Yes, ma'am," the innkeeper's wife replied worriedly. The door of the barroom opened. Agnart swaggered slowly into the inn. She entered with a confident air, as if she owned the place. She walked slowly across the barroom floor, looking at every detail, her attention finding each of the others in the room in turn. The innkeeper took a step back, and then another. He looked hateful in his eyes at the newcomer. Look at her, not a single stitch of clothing, prancing up and down naked in front of the entire village. There were children out there as well, you know. Have you creatures no shame? Gaggara did her best not to laugh. She turned her back on the rest of the barroom, trying to hide her face from Agnart. She chose a point on the wall opposite and tried to keep her eyes glued to that spot. Only her ears betrayed the fact that she was still listening. Reyes also turned his back to Agnart. There was a time that he had been certain he could trust Agnart with any secret. Now, though, she was a member of a village, and to a village harpy, someone like Reyes was nothing more than an opportunity to climb the social ladder. "You are a very brave man," Agnart said to the innkeeper. "My sisters would probably cut you down for even daring to speak to them like that. You're lucky it's me. You're also lucky that I'm hungry," she made a point of sniffing the air, "and I can smell chicken. Bring me as much as you have." "The chicken belongs to this gentleman," the innkeeper said defiantly. "Really?" Agnart commented. "Well, I'm sure he won't mind sharing with me." He walked up behind Reyes and placed a hand gently on his left shoulder. "Good morning, little chief. Did you think I wouldn't recognise you? It's only been a year, and you look much the same now as you did back then." "Hello, Agnart," Reyes replied uncertainly. He let his eyes drift over her naked body. To think he had once proclaimed his love to this creature, and now she stood behind him with his life in her hands. "You know, I once longed to see what you kept under your skirt." Agnart laughed. "I'm sure you did." Gaggara also began to laugh. You know this thing?" the innkeeper asked of Reyes. Reyes turned from looking at Agnart. Then he asked the innkeeper, "Did you ever visit the circus?" "The circus?" the innkeeper said. Well, I suppose, on occasion, when Sampere was young. Why? It would be the race side. I can't remember. It was the Beresford and Cologne Brothers Circus, Agnart offered. Then she looked at the innkeeper. I was one of the sideshows there, showing off my skill with the bow. That was where the little chief and I first met. She grinned at the innkeeper. That was a few years ago now. Today, I'm a valued member of my village, and I'm hungry. Where is that chicken? Come on, chop chop, divide it into 2 equal halves and bring it out to us. 3 halves, Gaggara commented sharply. And don't forget the eggs. The innkeeper replied, looking over at his wife. My wife is fetching the food now. Then he sounded a little uncertain as he added the honorific. Ma'am. Well, thank you, the innkeeper's wife uttered. The fear seemed to evaporate from her, only to be replaced by irritation. She took a deep breath, and keeping her eyes on the harpy, walked past where Gaggara was resting to enter the kitchen. Gaggara barely even looked up. So, little chief. Agnart took one of the available seats at the same table, turning it round as Gaggara had the previous evening, to make room for her wings and tail. What brings you to Sun's Blessing? I could ask you the same question, Reyes commented, except I think the answer is fairly obvious. What happened to you, Agnart? I found a village, Agnart said calmly, leaning back in the chair. They took me in. Yes, Reyes said, a valued member of your new society. Actually, Agnart commented, not really. I'm too old, you see. I think the only reason they didn't just kill me on the spot was because of my language skills. As it is, they tend to treat me as an outsider. Remember how the people of the circus used to call me Harpy? Reyes nodded. Well, my new sisters here have also renamed me, but the word they use means slave, Agnart explained. As for why we're here in Sun's Blessing, well, that too is a strange story. Until as recently as last night, we were supposed to be flying east. Tarifni, she's our leader, wanted us to go to Quince as she had heard there were some easy pickings to be had in that area. Instead, this morning we came here. What about you? Why are you in Sun's Blessing, and what happened to my bracelets? Reyes eyed the innkeeper, and then he said, Gaggara and I were just passing through. Gaggara? Agnart commented. She tilted her head slightly. Gaggara? The innkeeper echoed. Is that a Demoth name? Reyes sighed. He had so wanted to protect the innkeeper from the truth, but with Gaggara right there and Agnart questioning him about it, he knew he was going to have to tell the truth. He breathed in deeply and indicated the girl at the bar. That's Gaggara. But, said the innkeeper, looking at Gaggara in confusion, that's a harpy. Falling in love at first sight again, Reyes, Agnart commented with a smirk. I remember how you braved the middle of the night and possible attack by elven slavers to sneak away from your family and come and visit me at the circus. It's still one of my keenest memories. Sometimes I wish I'd accepted your advances, but you were far too young, and I was far too old. I was well beyond childbearing age even then. Reyes listened to Agnart and then looked over at the innkeeper, trying to discern his reaction. He indicated Gaggara. She's my fiancée. What are you talking about? The innkeeper growled. Where's the girl you were with last night? Where's your wife? That is the girl I was with last night, Reyes insisted. He sighed. Last night you were out feeding the chickens when a harpy flew overhead, scaring the living daylights out of you. It wasn't your imagination. But nor was it just the one harpy. I'm sorry, we didn't mean to scare you, but we didn't see you until it was too late. We were too busy looking for a place to spend the night, and your inn looked so inviting. The innkeeper just looked coldly at Reyes. When no one else in the inn was willing to believe you, Reyes continued, it was easy to just play along. Gaggara and I never meant you any harm. We were just trying to pass through your village unnoticed. I'm not listening to this nonsense, the innkeeper insisted. He turned away and took a seat at the same table where Sampere was sitting. I said that wasn't flourish, Sampere muttered under his breath. Reyes shook his head. At least he had tried. Gaggara turned round so that she could see into the barroom and, if she wanted, join in the conversation. There was no hint of jealousy in her demeanour. Gaggara wasn't like that. I see she's carrying, Agnart commented. I guess you eventually found out the truth about yourself then. I know what I am, Reyes confirmed. Agnart grinned. I remember your sister making me promise not to tell you. I was surprised that you hadn't already worked it out for yourself. There were plenty of signs for the observant. The only real puzzle was your ability with magic. I still don't understand how you can do that. But a harpy who can cast magic? Now that has to be a force to be reckoned with. Anyway, since we've established who you are, why not drop this human facade? I was comfortable, Reyes explained. And besides, I was hoping to be on my way soon. It's far easier to pass through human lands when you look human yourself. And her upbringing helps her to act human, Gaggara added. There are no more human lands, Agnart revealed, or at least there won't be very soon. The army of Ellestrand has invaded Flora from the north, aided by the goblins of the 1,000 tribes. They have already conquered everything to the north of us. Meanwhile, the Duberan navy has harboured itself at First Town, and the army of Cassitala are marching itself up from the south. You don't have to pretend to be human anymore. The capital is already under siege, Ray said incredulously. No, Agnart replied. First Town fell 2 days ago. It's in elven hands now. But, Ray said, unable to hide the shock in his voice, with the king's army, the city militia, and all the ducal armies, there were more than 60,000 soldiers defending the place. Agnart shrugged. They must have found some way to deal with them. All I know is that the capital is in elven hands. But my sister, Ray said worriedly. Agnart laughed. So that's why you're on the move. I can't tell you about your sister. I haven't been to First Town myself. Not for over a year anyway, not since I was with the circus. I'm pretty sure that as a member of the royal family, things aren't likely to go well for her. Royal family, the innkeeper muttered, making it clear that he was still listening, although it sounded as if he could hardly believe what he was hearing. Jenny the Moth, Agnart told him, the young princess that just got married. She is the little chief's sister. Yeah, right, the innkeeper commented. The prince married a harpy. Like that would ever happen. No, Agnart replied. The princess is quite human. The little chief here was adopted. The truth of what he was got hidden from even him. He seems to know now, though. Reyes nodded. He stood up and commented, I guess there's no point in my hiding any longer. A second later he wheeled his clothes back into the ring, and a second after that he was turning his chair around and sitting back down, having first taken the form of a female harpy. You really are a harpy, the innkeeper announced. Evidently he hadn't been willing to really believe it until he saw it with his own eyes. And I let you stay here. And I paid you well, Reyes declared. You can have the coin back, the innkeeper said, disgusted. I want nothing from a harpy. Keep it, Reyes insisted. When the elves get here, you might need it. You're a girl, Agnart commented. She clearly didn't care for the opinions of the innkeeper and all but spoke over him. Now that's something I would never have guessed. No, Reyes confessed. I'm merely disguised by the illusion of being female. My new toy is a lot more flexible than whatever it was that Manglos gave me to hide in the past. He showed Agnart the ring. I daren't make myself look male with so many of your sisters in the village. It was a medallion, Agnart told him. Then she added casually, it should have been obvious to me that you're really male. How else would you have been able to get your girlfriend pregnant? Quite, Reyes agreed. Just the one girlfriend? Agnart asked. So far, Gaggara replied, although it's not for want of my nagging him. Gaggara is enough for me, Reyes explained. I plan to marry her in the human way once this war is over. That's so sweet, Gaggara commented happily. The war is nearly over, Agnart told him. By dinner time tonight there'll be nothing left but a few stubborn holdouts. Reyes sighed. We need to leave. I need to get to the capital quickly. Can you help? Do you trust me? Agnart asked. No, Reyes replied honestly. I'm sorry, I'd like to, but you belong to a village now. I'd like to think our old friendship meant something, but I've been attacked too many times by girls who thought I was a potential rival to their chief. I'm not sure I'm willing to trust another. What I will do is promise you that if you betray me, you'll be among the first to fall. Gaggara unsheathed her claws, plainly enough for Agnart to see, and then sheathed them again and went back to looking through the doorway of the innkeeper's wife. I'm not going to betray you, Agnart assured him. Seriously, how stupid would that be, even without the threats? She put on a slightly different voice, suggestive of another time and place. Oh, terrific! This is Reyes. He's an old friend of mine, and although he's clearly female, he's actually male. Then, returning to her normal voice, she added, They already look down on me. Thank you, Reyes told her. Agnart didn't reply. She glanced over toward the kitchens and said, I wonder what's keeping the food. I think she's scared to come back out, the innkeeper commented coldly. Then go and get her, Agnart ordered. Tell her if we don't see her inside of a minute, I'll come and find her myself. Yes, ma'am, the innkeeper said. He swallowed, jumped out of his chair, and made his way towards the bar. Before he got there, though, the innkeeper's wife emerged with the food. Perhaps she had heard the threat. She tentatively placed one of the plates on the bar next to Gaggara, and then scurried over to deliver the other 2 plates to Reyes and Agnart. Thank you, Reyes commented as the plate was placed in front of him. It was approximately a third of a chicken from the look of it, It had been cooking for far too long. It was burnt on one side and the rest of it looked very dry. There was also 2 fried eggs sitting on the plate. They too looked overdone, and most of the albumen had charred black. The innkeeper's wife didn't reply. She scurried away as quickly as she could, ducking back into the kitchen, out of sight. "So, how can I help?" Agnart said. "Gaggara and I need to head south. We'd like to get out of this village without being noticed. I'd rather not have to answer any awkward questions from your leader." "You don't want to be seen leaving?" Agnart asked. "We don't want to be seen at all," Reyes clarified. Agnart nodded, biting into her chunk of chicken. "Then I'd suggest you leave quickly. The longer you hang around, the more likely it is that someone will notice you. Also, when you leave, act as if you belong. If someone should see you, they may just assume they don't know you." "Thank you, Agnart," Reyes said. "Don't speak to anyone," Agnart insisted. "None of the others speak Flourish." Reyes was confused for a moment, and then he said, "Why would that be an issue?" "I taught you my language well," Agnart said. "You're fluent, but only when you talk slowly." "It's been more than a year since we last met," Reyes told her, showing off his ability with the language. "A lot can happen in a year, and I owe a lot to my girlfriend." "I taught her," Gaggara said with a mouthful. Agnart paused for a moment and then said, "So why were we conversing in Flourish?" "I was following your lead," Reyes replied. Agnart laughed. She plucked the last few pieces of meat from between the chicken bones and then said, "Well, I guess when you're ready." "I'm ready," Reyes replied. He peeled a chunk of meat off his own part of the chicken carcass and called to Gaggara. "Waiting for you, my angel."